talking about how to actually go about making a sale, bringing on a new client without ever really needing to pitch, or at least not feeling like you are pitching. So when you are going into a sales meeting to be able to bring on a new or speaking with a prospective client, more often than not, agency owners feel like they have to pitch. They have to convince the prospect of the need to work with them, either against the competition, either against the other different potential solutions, whatever that might be. They feel ultimately that they're in a position of needing to convince them. And because of this, it actually makes you feel kind of dirty, right? More often than not, I hear from agency owners that they do not like sales, that they really want to get out of it. And so often it's actually causing them this mindset, this feeling of needing to sell, actually has them wanting to hire a business development or salesperson far too early within the organization, thinking that ultimately that is going to be the need, that I'm not good at sales, that I'm, not able to do this, and I just don't want to because it doesn't feel nice. And ultimately, you're actually are pitching the whole time, really, right? And what I see so incredibly often looking at either being part of a sales conversation with agencies or watching the recording after the fact, more than 80% of the time I see, more than 80% of the conversation, I mean, that the agency is the one that's speaking. And ultimately what they are trying to do is actually convince the prospect of the need to work with that agency and that they are the right fit. And here's all the reasons why. And so the whole time they are sitting in the position of needing to convince them and feeling the want and the desire to actually convince them, which ultimately leads to that cyclical place where I was talking about that makes you feel dirty, that makes you not like it, makes you not really be in that place. And more often than not, I actually see, unfortunately, the prospects actually kind of being bored to sleep. They're tired of actually feeling that way. And as human beings, we actually have a natural mechanism within us, and we've been programmed to avoid being convinced. And so you're making it actually harder for yourself when you're doing that. So what we want to do today is actually get you to a place where you can actually enjoy sales. It's actually just getting to know someone and having a conversation and being able to actually ultimately help them. I, quite frankly, get to enjoy sales because all I'm doing is offering advice. The same thing that I'd be doing in a client conversation. And I'm just articulating to them and going through with prospective clients of what's actually possible for them and sort of what is the pathway to actually get there. And let them know that I can support them in XYZ way and help them and ultimately let them have the choice. But have them, realistically speaking, it's flipping the actual conversation. Rather than you articulating to them why they need you, let them articulate to you why they need you. And quite frankly, sales isn't dirty. It's fun. And you can feel great afterwards. You just have to stop selling. You have to understand ultimately that you are the prize. You are the one that's actually able to help them accomplish their goals. That they need you. And that you can help them provide them with the help that they need to get to ultimately where they want to go. And so the thing that really, for me, allowed for me to really truly discover this and like really cement this in my mind is I was actually having a sales conversation, and this is sort of flowing through the same type of thing. And I was still doing the same sort of scripts, the same sort of process, the same sort of things, right? And I had been developing them for years, and recognizing that and it like fully clicked for me is that when I was having a conversation that ultimately was not qualified, and more often than not, I would sort of end the call a little bit quicker because ultimately that's not someone that I could sell and I ultimately couldn't help. But ultimately this person I could help and actually get them to being able to accomplish what they were looking for faster, but not ultimately working with me at that moment because they were not ready and could not afford working with us. And so the thing ultimately that the sales call went essentially no different. I went through all of it with them, end to end, exactly what it was. And so all we did was it was about 30-minute conversation. It was about 15 minutes shorter than what my usual conversation would have been. But all I did was provide them with value the same way that I would have in any other conversation. And I left that conversation feeling quite uplifted, quite nice. And ultimately, for this prospect, he actually did end up coming back around 18 months later when he could afford us, because he remembered us. I helped him actually get to the place where he was able to afford us, because I helped him unlock a couple of things within his organization and within his agency, allowing for him to be able to make the sales he was looking for, get to the place that ultimately was going to allow for him to be able to afford it. And he remembered me because I was providing him with value. And ultimately for me, it felt nice because I was helping someone. And every single one of you, I know when you actually help someone, and not even in a business context, I'm saying, but just in life, when you help someone, it feels nice. And so you can be doing the same thing in a sales conversation with some parameters, obviously, and articulating and putting it into a process that ultimately will lead to you helping them long term and working with them to do so. It's just recognizing ultimately that you have this deep knowledge, this deep expertise that the vast majority of the people on this planet do not have. And recognizing ultimately that your expertise, your knowledge base can actually impart some help to this person. And if you can show them that you have this knowledge, that you have this expertise, and ultimately they're safe with you, you don't need to convince anyone. You actually just need to show them that you have that, because ultimately they're going to feel more safe. And so let's think about it in this context, right? And a friend of mine, Taki, actually puts it, I think, best. And he refers to it as sort of warm chocolate chip cookies. And I'll explain it a little bit more in just a moment. And let's play it in two separate scenarios. Let's say that you have a friend coming over to your house and you're not finished getting ready and you guys are going to dinner. Or you guys are going wherever, doesn't matter where you're going. You're not finished getting ready. And so when your friend knocks on the door, you're like, hey, whomever, I'm actually running a couple minutes late. I'm just about to be finished done getting ready. I'll be done in about 5 minutes. Would you like some chocolate chip cookies and milk? And the person would be like, yeah, no, I'm okay. I'll just sit on the couch. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Versus let's play this scenario, right? They knock on the door and you had been baking chocolate chip cookies and the house smells like baking, and the door opens and you say, hey, I'm not finished getting ready. I'll be done in about 5 minutes, but I actually just pulled some warm chocolate chip cookies out of the oven. They're on a plate on the counter, and I actually poured a glass of milk for you right next to them. Go, if you want them, go have at them. I'll be out in 5 minutes. The person's response is going to be, hell yeah, I'll have some of those warm chocolate chip cookies. They smell phenomenal. They're already ready for me. Why not? They're already there. This is exactly what I want you to be doing in a sales conversation. I want you to have the aroma, the smell, the enticement of the warm chocolate chip cookies that are already there. They're already on the plate. They're already served. They're welcome to them. Not that you are going to create them for them. You're going to pull them out. It's something that's already done. You're doing it either way, no matter what, with them or with someone else. And it's their opt-in. And so they can talk to you about why they want those warm chocolate chip cookies. So let's think about it this way, is that this is your prospect. And this is your agency. As you actually try to sell, you're actually building up a wall. More and more you actually try to convince someone, you're actually building up that wall more and more and more. And ultimately what we want to do is not actually have that wall being built. The people that you end up selling ultimately have a really high amount of motivation and desire to work with an agency like yours. So they actually end up working with you, going through this wall, overcoming it in spite of you. If we can actually be in a place where we actually never build this wall, where we actually show them the pathway of how they ultimately can get to you, they're more likely to actually engage and want to actually work with you. So when they have a call with you, what I want you to do is actually not be in a position and not actually have them feeling like they're being pitched to and being sold. You, again, are in that concept of warm chocolate chip cookies. But here's the sort of breakdown that I want you to think about a conversation. If you are speaking more than 20% of the time, you're doing something wrong. I want you to actually make sure that you are having conversations with them. You're asking them the right questions. Even just in asking questions, you can show your expertise, your knowledge base. You're asking them the right questions, then giving them right feedback, the correct feedback at certain moments when maybe they're thinking the wrong way or thinking the wrong thing. And so you can say, so someone says, hey, I think that this is the best way forward. And you can say, hey, I know why you would think that. And quite frankly, a lot of people do believe that. But what we find is XYZ. So you're providing them with support, you're providing them with information, you're showing them the best way forward. And so what I'd love for you to do is actually grab your worksheet. So I want you to start to articulate and write down what types of questions you're going to be asking, because you do have to collect the right amount of information from them in order to be able to put together a proposal, the SOW, and really being able to guide the conversation. So I want you to think about it in two different areas. It's in qualification and in background. So these are going to be questions like, what are your current conversion rates? Your lifetime value of a client? To what is your budget? To what is your revenue? To what is the size of your team? To these types of questions, and ultimately depending on your service type, it's actually going to adjust and change. So making sure that you are asking the right types of questions related to the service that you offer, what your agency actually does, whether it's branding, whether it's video, whether it's design, ultimately allowing for them to have a clear understanding of what's actually happening. So traffic numbers for the website, the opt-in rates, all of those types of things, ultimately that will allow for you to be able to collect the correct information. And then you're going to actually take from where they currently are to what their goals are. So you're going to take the inverse, the exact same thing. So here's where you are right now, and then this is where you actually want to be. And then finally understand where and what is their why. Understanding fully where they've been, where they are now, where they're going, all understand exactly how that's going to impact them. So it's questions of, so let's just so that I understand, right, is that your current conversion rate is at a 2.5%. If we were able to actually double that from 2.5% to 5%, what does that mean for your organization? Let's play that out. Does it make a difference? And let's say that it's an e-commerce brand. It likely means, one, that they can bring on more people. They may be able to afford to do a new site. They may be able to move to a different platform. They may be able to buy in higher quantity, being able to actually improve their profit margins. So this has a far-reaching implication for them if they're able to take the exact same amount of traffic, but double their conversion rate, making sure ultimately that their site is optimized for conversion. And so those types of things that you're having conversations with them about is understanding that underlying reason why. And you actually want to ask those questions because this is why they're going to buy. And you need to actually be comfortable and have the conversation, understand what is motivating them, what is actually making them want to make this adjustment, understanding ultimately how engaged they are in actually having that conversation and actually making that change. And then understanding what is actually going on for them. So questions like, so you would ask questions. So I'm assuming that in the course of the time that you've owned the business, and that's making up a number in the past 5 years, that you have attempted to make improvements on conversion yourself. So what have you tried? What worked and what didn't? Would love to hear sort of how things have gone. We've tried moving products around. We've tried doing X. We've tried doing Y. We've tried doing Z. So let me just make sure that I understand this. You've actually redesigned your site a couple of times. You've moved products around. You've tried to entice them to actually add additional products at the end of the cart, but ultimately it actually isn't driving that result, right? And then you can start to give them a little bit of advice around that and talk about things in a sort of third-party selling. So you're utilizing a verbal format of a case study in this conversation, articulating how you've helped someone else in that same situation to be able to solve that ultimate problem and sort of how you actually went about doing it, allowing for them to know that ultimately they are not the guinea pig, that you've actually done something like this before with a client, ultimately making them feel safe and confident that your agency can help them. I want you to actually think and utilize, and having gone through this training now and utilizing this workbook, I want you to take some time and actually write down the questions that you need to be asking them. making sure ultimately that you are focused on providing them with value, that you are focused on helping this prospective client, having them actually want to engage with you and understand how you can help them. I hope that this training was very valuable for you. If you have any questions about what types of questions you should be asking and the format by the questions that you should be asking, and whether you've maybe sometimes in some of the questions might feel a little bit foreign to be asking, and whether they're okay to ask, and how to actually set up the conversation ultimately to be able to have this more value-oriented sales conversation. If you have any of these questions, feel free to comment below or shoot us a DM. We're absolutely happy to help and make sure that you get unlocked and being able to bring on more of your prospective clients into new paying clients and working with them and having loads of success. I hope this was helpful, and